Well, last week was a faith that saves, and this week's a faith that shows. And it reminded me of probably back when I was in college. I probably heard it the first time. I guess it was that old that someone came up to us in Bible study group and we got talking and they said, if you were put on trial today for being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? A statement that was pretty convicting. Because weren't really sure. You know, if we were put on trial in the middle of Bible study or the middle of Sunday morning at worship, yeah, maybe. But if you put me on trial on Friday night at 11 o'clock, maybe not. Another follow-up with that is one that most of us, we grew up with, and our parents, our grandparents, I don't know how far back it goes, but it was plain and simple, and it was walk your talk. Whether it was about Christianity or anything else, walk your talk. Don't just run your mouth. It's interesting. I do that. If you watch the game, yes. One of the coaches on the field told one of the players, "Go play. Stop." One of the kids today would probably look at you and probably go, "Hey, be real, dude. Walk your talk. Be real, dude. Come on." I mean, each and every one of us will probably have some phrase that you probably heard or said at some point to tell somebody to practice what they preach. You know, when we look around, we don't see a whole lot of that anymore. We see a lot of poll taking and a lot of going where the polls say to go. Not doing what we necessarily believe. Probably not one of the best movies to share in church, but I guess I learned that a long time ago about things that I just don't know any better. But The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas was a musical, but in the movie he said Charles Durning plays the part of the mayor or whatever he is, and he's always asking what the polls say, and he keeps flip-flopping from this side to that side, to this side, to that side, because he's going to go wherever the polls tell him to go. Even at one point, he learned to turn that big Stetson hat. He'd turn it sideways, and then he'd go, "What do the polls say?" And he would turn so the hat would fall directly on top of his head. So he'd just go wherever somebody else told him to go. Do we look around and do we see people living out what they say they believe? You know, look at our family, look at our friends, we look at celebrities. You know, do you know where they really stand? Do they know where you really stand? About anything, not just your faith. You know, I often say when I read in the paper and I read about certain political folks who I really don't agree with at all. But what I like most is there are certain ones of them that I know exactly every time what they're going to say and where they're going to come down. And as much as I disagree, I really respect that. Some of my friends say, "Yeah, so you know they're going to be an idiot every time." Okay, but I know it. You know who they are. They walk their talk. They're real, dude. You know, I say that about the Catholic Church. I said everybody goes about the Catholic Church, and theologically I disagree with the Catholic Church on a lot of things. But you know what? When it comes down to birth control, the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, in spite of whatever its membership says, is going to come down on birth control. Because they believe it's theological. They're going to come down on anti-abortion. I hate to say pro-life. I'm assuming most of us are pro-life. I assume none of us are lining up to give up on life. People stand on what they believe. Show their conviction. They show their faith in their principles. As Christians, we have to show our faith. Is there enough evidence to convict us? Author named Karen Wolf wrote on a website. It's called ChristianityAsked.com. Kind of an odd name, but there's lots of questions that you can ask in there. And she writes this. She says, "For faith for me, then you," in that order. Faith for me, and then you in that order. She says, there's nothing worse than somebody trying to preach to you about something going on in your life when all you can think about is about finding a way to fix it. At that moment, the last thing that you want to see is somebody carrying a Bible and acting like they know exactly what you need and how you feel. And truth to be told, when they ask you to read from their Bible, you're thinking that you'd rather hit them over the head with it. This is what we talked about last week. In order to have faith and to use faith and grow faith, you must first be saved by faith. And until you have been saved by faith and the grace of God through Jesus Christ, it's no wonder your faith is confusing. This is that point. Wolf then is reminding us to take care of our own lives first. The trouble is that even after we come to accepting the grace of Christ, we act like it's somebody else's job to live that way. It's, I don't do that. If you pick up an evening and you're willing to go over and hand out diapers for us, then Joni is going to tell you that we have made a policy that before anybody leaves, that we're going to pray with them. And you go, yeah, but they just came here to get diapers and they're hungry. We don't know what they're... And and I don't know what to pray. The preacher's got the prayer guy. We got to call on him. I challenged my family. I said, I don't even get time off on weekends. We have Thanksgiving and Christmas, whatever it is, we're all together. We look around. Your job. In fairness, it was sort of my job before I did this job, but, But if you're there to hand out diapers, then your job is to pray with them before you go. And you're right. I'm sure you probably don't know what to say. And now if I had any hope of getting you to come over and serve and handing out diapers, you're probably going, I'm not doing it now. But you know what? We have never, ever once been rejected. We have never even met with a cold shoulder. 100% of the time, oh yes, please. Because most people have a faith that they don't think they can pray directly. Or maybe they just feel better to know that someone cares enough about them to do that. That's showing faith. You didn't have to preach to them. You didn't have to read Scripture. You just simply had to say prayer. Maybe you want to do the be still and know God is God prayer. All right? I'm not going to say anything, but I think the two of us are going to stand here and we're going to hold hands. And we're just going to take a deep breath. We're going to breathe in and breathe out. And thank God and ask God for whatever's on our minds. Amen. You showed love, compassion. You asked God to come in. You didn't have the words. I don't have the words either. I say Sunday after Sunday, somebody will say to me, oh, you said something really good. I said, well, you know what? If you'd left it to me, I said, you wouldn't have understood a word of it. I don't know why God chooses to use me, but He does. And it's a good thing, because it sounds a lot better than when I do it. Now, the trouble is that we get into these situations and we accept this God and we tend to want to give it away to somebody else. Wolf then says this. She says, here are some practical things that you can do without having to say much at all. 1. The best ways to share your faith is to demonstrate the very things that you believe by staying positive and having a good attitude in the middle of a crisis in your own life. Now that's probably one of Janet's in the back going, I hope he's listening to his own words. Because sometimes it's like, and I'm not that way with others, but when it comes to my life, it'll sometimes get that way. Boy, I'm a whole lot better than I was about 20 years ago. But being positive because, even if it doesn't go the way I want, the faith we talked about is God takes us through things, not around them. We don't get exempt. The example that she uses is this. Remember the story in the Bible when Peter's walking on the water and Jesus tells him to get out of the boat and walk, and he calls him and he's going around, he's walking on the water, and he's like, wow, I'm walking on the water. And then all of a sudden Peter goes in the back of his mind, oh crap, I'm walking on water. And when he did that, What happened? He started to sink because he lost his focus on, and he lost his focus on Christ and focused on the storm. Look at these waves. Oh my gosh. There's whitecaps everywhere. I'm going to drown. And you start to drown. Once he focused on Christ, everything was fine. People around you see the peace in your life. Especially when it seems like you're surrounded by storms. And I'm looking in the room and I know there's some of you that I have sat with and talked about, and I have even, you may not know it, I didn't use your name, but I have used you as an example of folks who have been through more than what anyone should go through. You hear that all the time. I shouldn't have to go through this much stuff. Question? And that is because why? Because you're better than the rest of us? Well, now we don't like you anymore. No, it does seem like some of us go through a lot worse things than others. But maybe that's because some of us don't see the inside of other people. On the other hand, if all of us, see is the top of our head as Peter's going on the water, if all we can see that, as long as he keeps his nose above the water, is it really an issue? Yeah, I'm pretty scared in water that's going to be this deep and I can't feel the bottom. But as long as I'm here, what's there to worry about? Oh, then maybe a few crabs or fish. I can breathe. I am going to live. She says this on 2. She says, treat people with respect and dignity, no matter the circumstances. Whenever you have the opportunity, show how you don't change how you treat folks, no matter what. Jesus said people right even when they mistreated him. People around you will wonder how you're able to show this kind of respect for others. You never know. They might even ask you how you do it. It doesn't mean you have to get walked on without holding your ground. You'll get walked on. You'll disagree. But attacking them personally, bringing them down because of where they are. Wow, we see so much of that in politics. In the last so many years, we've seen so much of you are a hateful individual. Not, I don't like your business practices. You are a hateful person. Not that I disagree with your theology. This is showing respect. 3, she says, find ways of blessing others. This not only plants amazing seeds for harvest in your own life, it shows others that you're not a phony. And you're working with young folks, said in particular, they sniff out a phony in a hurry. The teachers are laughing big time, I can see. It shows that you live what you believe. Saying you're a Christian is one thing, but living it in tangible ways every day is something else. The Word says that they'll know them by their fruit. Do you know my evaluation and our church evaluation by the United Methodist Church is based on fruit? It's an evaluation of Acts 2 fruit. If we are alive and vital, then the fruit of the church shows that there are people learning about God from us. We are making disciples of Christ. That's the purpose of the church. Nothing else. Making disciples of Christ. And sometimes that's through Christmas gifts, and sometimes it's through diapers, and sometimes it's just a call on the phone saying, I hear things aren't so great. 4, she says, don't compromise your beliefs. Situations happen every day where compromise is not only possible, but many times is expected. Show people that your Christianity means living a life of integrity, and oh yes, that means that you tell the sales clerk when she has undercharged you for a quart of milk. This is something that I talked about with kids at school a lot of times even. Don't compromise. And society, if they pick up the paper or they only listen to the news part way, says that the only responsible answer in life is to compromise. If you are senator from the most liberal state in the world, and you are senator from the most conservative state in the world, and you really believe in what you're talking about, how is this good for either one of you? Now, aside, we have to do what's good for the whole, and compromise happens. But if I believe, if I am completely anti-abortion, and I am completely pro-abortion, meaning I don't care who has one, when it happens, or whatever, how can they ever compromise? You know, like or dislike a radical Islamic event, they don't believe in compromising what they believe in. Should they? I think so. But it's like that politician I disagree with who stands on his or her grounds. Compromise is not always right. And in believing in Jesus Christ, we don't get to tell God, yeah, but I don't like that part. I think we ought to give this part up, and because it just makes me feel uncomfortable. And God's going, knock yourself out, but I'm not changing. 5, she says, the ability to forgive quickly is a very powerful way to show how Christianity really works. Become a model of forgiveness. Nothing creates division, hostility, and turmoil more than the unwillingness to forgive people who hurt you. Of course, there are going to be times when you're absolutely right. Heard me say before, those people who think they're right are very annoying to those of us who really are. Being right doesn't give you a free pass to punish, humiliate, or embarrass someone else, even though you are right. And it most certainly doesn't eliminate your responsibility to forgive. Wow, this happens so many times in churches. So many times in churches that we get in and we decide that we're going to recarpet the church, and the committee chose green, we took a majority vote, but dadgummit, you wanted red. And you're going to leave the church because they didn't listen to your opinion. Fortunately, we haven't had any of those issues in a long, long time. But those are real life things, and that's what they're saying. You got to forgive. You got to let go of those things that aren't important. These issues aren't compromising your faith. Because you're probably saying, wow, Rick, you just told me not to compromise my faith. Okay, there's a difference in that, and a difference in whether you like the songs we sang for this Sunday versus the songs we sang last Sunday. The best way to show your faith is by example. It said people will want to know how you can be peaceful in a storm, and why your kids are doing well. It said why your marriage is great, why you know for sure about your purpose in life. And when they ask, you'll have all kinds of great stuff to share. But just how specifically? How specifically do you show this faith? And I got thinking about it. Is there evidence in your choice of magazines and books? Because your kids and your grandkids are watching your faith. Is there evidence in the music that you play on the radio? Because your kids and your family and friends are listening to your faith. Is there evidence in how you manage stress? Because your faith is being copied by others. Is there evidence of how you treat others, particularly your spouse and your family? Remember those vows that said that you would love, honor, and cherish sickness and health? And all those things that included all those bad times that you swore were never going to happen in your marriage, and they've all happened and maybe even continue to happen? Finally, is it evident in your checkbook and your time card? Remember, your faith shows, good or bad. We are someone's example of a Christian. There's a gentleman who lived to be 104. Told us that on Sunday mornings in Bible study. Leo Davison would sit there and he would look at us and he goes, you know, like it or not, we're somebody's example of a Christian. Pastor Ken Silva wrote about the second chapter of James, and he said this. He said, in chapter 2 of this book, He said, James, the half-brother of Jesus, writes, show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by what I do. He said, let me give you a modern translation, he says. If you're going to talk the talk, then you better walk the walk. He said, now these deeds or work are being spoken here by James, as well as the fruit of Jesus, as he talks about in Matthew in chapter 7. Do not and cannot save a person. Those works do not and cannot save a person. Last week we told you what saves. Your salvation comes through faith in the grace of God evidenced in Jesus Christ. That's where salvation comes. And as James says, though, show me your faith without works, and I'll show you mine with. Just living a Christian life, Silva says, not a Christian-like lifestyle is not enough, as virtually all religions, non-Christian cults or peoples in general, can point to a relatively high standard of morals. This week, how will you show your faith? At work. Live out your faith by not preaching, but by working hard for your boss or for the company. At the store, acknowledge whether you've been undercharged or not. Stand up for the right thing. If you're a young person, you're going to school, then pray. It's illegal for the school to make you pray, but it's not illegal for you to pray. And then share your faith, not by taking the Bible around and showing it to somebody, but when that kid's getting bullied, that you stand up for him. When that kid's getting made fun of, you stand up for him. And that way you're showing Christ's love to everybody. That's a faith that shows. Even when you know that they despise your faith, you'll be amazed that they'll respect you for your character. Jesus taught us to love our enemies, not to change and be like them. This week, we need to show our faith in our time, our talents, and our presence or gifts, is what many of us said when we joined membership in the church. This week, make sure that you could get arrested and convicted by the evidence that Christ is in your faith. Amen. Let's join in singing our last song, also in the Faith We Sing book, 2227.